I want you to know that this Aries full moon is about clearing the conscience, finally, of illusions, guilt, shame, fear, and hesitation. There's been a legacy of walking on eggshells, avoiding conflict, not wanting to be the cause of rejection, humiliation, fallouts, lost or missed opportunities. And with Mercury in square as it enters into Scorpio at the same time as this full moon, Aries, in square to Pluto, this is that we're clarifying what our deeply rooted emotional grievances have been for many seasons against those who held power over our identity, held power over our personal expressions, and that only because we gave our power to them. This can be individuals, institutions, organizations, colleagues, managers, a lover, a friend, a sibling, parent. Inappropriate power has been held over you. And with Aquarius being part of the expression behind Pluto, characterizing Pluto in retrograde, it has to do with how we see our role in society or in the community, and that there's inconsistencies with who we know ourselves to be. And there's a misalignment with the sense of empowerment that we know we should have. And that pattern began with codependencies and fear of retaliation that results in a status of isolation that is unwarranted or undesired. This is where it finally turns around to where we don't fear the threat anymore. We don't care about the consequences anymore. Now is the time that we see there's no loss in claiming my authenticity. There is only gain. Loneliness and isolation has nothing to do with the approximation of other people, close to me or far from me. It has everything to do with the proximity of myself to my inner child. And because I have recovered and regained that understanding that I can never be lonely, I can never be isolated, if I am in embrace with my inner child, in clarity and peace with myself, and have clarified my conscience and have cleaned my hands through forgiveness, through atonement, restitution, by being sure that where justice is owed, I have delivered, and that was the Libra Mars transit. My conscience is clear. And with that clear conscience, And with the power of Mercury and Scorpio that finally is able to clarify and articulate this ongoing burden, and why I cannot seem to find and keep hold of my power. Why I always have to change and modify who I am to make you comfortable. My freedom, my free expression is so threatening to you. My free expression and being is so inconvenient for you. My freedom and expression of being bothers you so deeply. This is the time where we advocate for and we accept the self as is. And let the chips fall where they may. It does not warrant messiness, aggression, oppression, rudeness, and disrespect. Libra is where the sun is at. With diplomacy and with tact, with justice, fair dealing, and a will and intention to harmonize, with obedience to the 42 laws of Ma'at, clearing my conscience, keeping my conscience clear, the record has to be set straight. The terms clarified. The 8th house, affairs, oppression, injustices, imbalances, injuries, they have to come to the court of Scorpio. And in the court of Scorpio, there is loyalty to myself. There is loyalty to myself. And out of the loyalty to myself, I cannot allow anyone or anything to limit me, oppress me, hold guilt or shame over me for claiming my natural status and identity that seems to be so inconvenient for others. I have new soulmates on the way. I have new soul contracts being opened through Sagittarius Juno transit. And as I lose some, I will surely gain some, if it is inevitable. And I am at peace with that. If I have to lose some friends, that's okay, because I've gained myself, and I will never lose myself again. So be it. A new community awaits me. New missions await me. And through the power of Aries, I have the courage, the boldness, and the clarity in my identity to embark on that journey with no shame, no guilt, no hesitation. My conscience is clear. Now I get to be who I know I am. First house. Follow the instructions of your first house. Follow the guidance of your first house. This Aries full moon, it has us to address the emotional noise, confusion, inconveniences, blockages that are in the way of that expression. Scorpio Mercury is going to facilitate clarification around any confusion emotionally that has to be transformed or transmuted so that we can have access to that status within. It's going to take bravery. It's going to take resilience and courage. And most of all, it's going to take for us to align with truth wheresoever, howsoever we find it. This is the case individually and collectively because remember, demographics are being examined. Demographics are being judged. Demographics are receiving the portion of karma during this transit of Cancer Jupiter. Demographics are being addressed. And over the collective right now, white supremacy is on the rise. And me mentioning that should not offend any white folks out there. I don't have any problem with any person who is so-called white. I also am not saying that just because you're white, that is what you do or believe in. I'm not even convinced that it's the majority or even a large portion of so-called white people in society who subscribe to it. However, it is there. It is part of the new regime that is intentionally being engineered, reawakened, and reintroduced as a social standard and norm. Very soon, before I go into this, some of you can stop crying right now. I'm going to talk about the Aries full moon. So you ain't got to cry about it and try to speed through it. Hold your horses. You can listen and hear it out. Calm down. I'm not going to talk about this for an hour, but I need to mention this detail. So anyway, back to the program. Very soon we're going to see this on the ground level. It starts through social media, of course. It's being pushed by the Khazarians through compliance of our monarchs and oligarchs who are manifesting with the Khazarians. This new agenda is white Christian nationalism, evangelicalism, Mormonism, Zionism. That is the new regime. It is not sincere. It is not about religion. It is not about God. It is political. It is a national movement. And it is simply white supremacy that is compatible with Khazarian incorporated Israel state Zionistic regimes that has to find a compatibility in cultural context in order to disarm the moral objections of the people through religious sentiment that escapes the scrutiny of the intellect and gets absorbed into the religious sentiment of the body. And this is what makes ignorance so dangerous. Jesus is Lord, Christ is King. Oh, I got saved today. I'm a Christian now. I'm going to start going to church. All those things are good when it's sincere. But when it's commercial, when it's because you're joining the wave, because you keep seeing it on social media, because you heard your friend and you seen this post and you read that post, because you seen it on movies that's getting ready to come out. Oh yeah, it's coming. White Christian nationalism is going to be force-fed the same way that the liberals force-fed us feminism and homosexuality. It's going to be force-fed. And a lot of people are not going to give any resistance or scrutiny. And the ignorance is scary out there. Educate yourself so that you know who is who and what is what behind these things. Educate yourself, especially if you have children. Teach them and teach them properly. This is a dangerous movement. It's the same movement that's responsible for Jim Crow, slavery, the Christian black codes, doctrine of discovery, manifest destiny, genocide of indigenous peoples all over the planet. And it has always worked hand in hand with Khazarians, the small hats. They own every last one of the slave ships. They have always worked together. And this is no different. Secret Treaty of Verona, doctrine of discovery, under unum sanctum, the tricks are coming back out the bag. By the time we get to December, a culture wave. New movies are going to come out. Social media influencers are being paid between $7,000 and $9,000 to push this agenda, to brainwash the children. Benjamin Netanyahu does not like the Gen Z feedback. Gen Z ain't falling for it. They know the truth. They see the truth. And he intends to brainwash. He already got control of TikTok. It's only a matter of time before the judgment and criticism comes upon females from conservative Christian white women. Oh, I'm a Christian and you're not. I've been saved and you're not. I'm holy and righteous and you're not. Jesus is King, Christ is Lord, and you're a witch. You're a tarot card reader. Oh, you're evil. It's coming. Judgment, criticism, racism, and division, animosity, fear-mongering. The push to make people afraid of black people. The push to make people afraid of Hispanics. The push to make people afraid of people of color. The push to make people afraid of Muslims or anyone with any religion other than Christianity. The obsession with fear-mongering about Muslims. An obsession with fear-mongering about black males in American society. It is an obsession. There's truth to everything, but the agenda is clear. Aries full moon. Let's talk about it. Here we are. We made it to the Aries full moon. Aries full moon. What's significant about the Aries full moon, this brings in the other side. The other side of the eclipse season and the year-long journey of shadow work through the Scorpio stellium year long of inner child work through the Mars retrograde, Cancer, as well as the closure of the last decan of Pisces with Saturn, now in retrograde, giving us a review of competence in these lessons and themes of escapism, accountability, discipline, and self-command. Clearing the conscience. As it relates to Aries full moon, this has a lot to do with that first house expression, you having the awareness finally that you were assigned a particular mission and you were given these forces at the first house, this aura, this image, this personality trait. And it took all that healing and the water trine to come to the clarity and the authentic expression, the original intent of that first house expression, who you're really supposed to be. And what we would find is there were challenges in being who we're supposed to be. Among those challenges, not everybody wants you to be who you're supposed to be. And there could be many who want you to ask permission to be who you want to be. And for many, there's the threat, the ultimatum of rejection comes if you should be authentic. Mutiny comes if you should be authentic. Isolation comes if you should be authentic. We learn to neutralize these threats. We learn to isolate ourselves from what had us attached to these ideals. That the threat is real. We were given isolation, which ultimately is the manifestation of the threat. Should you be yourself, should you be authentic, isolation is the consequence. Well, a favor came to us, and that favor was every one of us were given a portion of isolation. So now that I already have the bullet, I've taken the bullet, how can you threaten me? I'm already here. I've already been isolated. I've already been rejected. I've already been exiled. I've already been put on the outside, misunderstood and misinterpreted. What more shall I fear? What you threaten to do, I'm already in it. What is there to lose? Well, revolutionaries were made, and you are one of them. First house in Aries, full moon. This emotional intensity is at the breaking point. The intolerance is here to conform anymore or to entertain and accept relationships, circumstances that pose limitations, blockages, or threats for our authentic expression. That ends now with this full moon in Aries. But the story behind us of getting past those 0 and 1st degrees, retrograding back to the 29th degree and back again, retrograde of Mars, the Scorpio stellium of shadow work, and then the eclipse season, In the furnace and out of the furnace. Back in the furnace and out of the furnace. Over and over again. You are a beautiful product of a master blacksmith, Mars, Lord of Aries. The ultimate intention of all of these transits to restore the original intention of the first house, that you are an agent of heaven and not of Rothschild, Rockefeller ideal, commercialism, corporations, or conformities. You are an agent of heaven, and you have a gift from heaven that you are meant to deliver. And what comes with it is a sense of fulfillment, a sense of purpose, clarity in the identity, faith and zeal, everything that the soul truly longs to be connected with. And what good would it be if we could not connect with others to help to celebrate it as well as create it and spread its opportunities? And this is what has to do with Sagittarius, and that Juno has just entered into Sagittarius. And this gives us the longing for that sense of freedom. Vesta is in Sagittarius. And what this does is it makes sure that we do not get too absorbed in relationships, but that we align with the opportunities of relationships, keeping them as healthy connections and not attachments. Shall we remember? This is the context of Aquarius Pluto. Attachments are no longer the relationship context because we already have learned that lesson, and we cannot return to that lesson except we get served karma. Connection, not attachment. We must remember connection, not attachment. Sagittarius, Juno, new relationships are on the horizon. Your new community is on the way. You can't do it alone. You can't go it alone. Now what's required as the 0 degrees, 1st degrees, and 29th degrees are being reconciled with direct and retrograde motion, there's a lot that we had to leave behind, and there is much that we still have to download and receive in the initiation of our fool's journey into the new reality. What must come with that is there are particular soulmates who are scheduled to meet us at these points of time as Juno transits through Sagittarius. You very well could have met some of those soulmates who already primed you to realize what freedom really means to you, what expression should consist of for you without limitations, and to champion and praise you as you find your rhythm with it. And you mutually do the same for your comrades. You are meant to show up for each other by soul contract, to take care of each other along these lines. Sagittarius is to spread the contagious fire, the zealous fire of the resurrected phoenix who rose from the ashes of the last decan of Scorpio. And surely, I know you feel that way, that is the case, that it is the status that you are at today. And help is on the way. Friends, helpmates, companions, educators, mentors, teachers, healers, and guides, and also protectors. They are on the way. They will manifest at the right times and at the right places. All we need is to remain focused and consistent with the most sincere expressions of who we are. Sagittarius does rule the ninth house, the house of competence, wisdom, experience, exploration. Well, it's the only way to realize the image of who we are now through freedom. What did we learn prior to the eclipse season? We learned two valuable lessons among many lessons as it relates to freedom. That is that accountability and moral commitment must always go with freedom. If it does not go with freedom, it becomes self-entrapment. The expansion of Cancer through Jupiter is certainly expanding our moral commitment and moral awareness through our conscience. It is a restoration of our conscience. This restoration and expansion of our conscience, it has us to respect freedom. It has us to be purposeful with our freedom. It has us to be anchored in security with our freedom and not exploit ourselves with our freedom, robbing ourselves of the sense of security that we have and the clarity and the conscience that we have. We've seen much of this during the South Node Libra transit as it was closing up the abuse of freedom. Feminism, liberalism were among the main regimes that sustained this catalyst of karmic lesson and what we were to do with freedom or not, and what are the consequences of abuse of freedom and liberty. Hopefully we learned. As for Cancer-Jupiter transit, the expansion of our conscience, this goes well to keep our relationship context within a line of integrity. That we're not here to recreate the disease, the injury, the suffering, the offenses that we just passed through as a healing. Instead, we are here to bring purpose into the world, to advance the experience and receptivity of the world, to also bring healing to the world and service to the world that answers our needs as decentralization has manifest with the people. With decentralization manifesting with the people, it is only the expansion of Cancer-Jupiter that can guide us back to what are our primary needs for security. What are our primary needs for security? This recollection comes from connecting to the matriarchal foundation in our reality, especially with children and women of our community, their feedback, their needs, their expressions of their own thresholds of security and need. This informs us on what should be there, and it clarifies what is missing. When we speak these things out into the atmosphere of what we are lacking and what we need as family, and we all become aware of where the suffering is at, where the weaknesses are at, what is insufficient, and what is a threat to our security, what requires maintenance, and what could become a problem later on. This awareness is accelerating and expanding as many changes are taking place to decentralize the people from government and government from the people, where resources, our basic needs, what we depended on for survival and to thrive, much of that is missing by the stroke of Donald Trump's pen. It is arguable whether or not it was appropriate. It is arguable whether or not it is beneficial to us that that happens. But either way, the consequence of that is an opportunity that we get to become the source of our own security together as communities, as families, and as relationships. Security is a leading issue right now. And security is the polarity of freedom. He or she who wants more freedom must sacrifice some security. He or she who wants more security must sacrifice some freedom. A balance has to be there. As Juno is transiting Sagittarius, it is Vesta that makes sure that in our reality of that ninth house Sagittarius exploration of our soul's journey, that we do not get so caught up into it that we forget the needs of the soul, that we forget the concentration to the soul, that we forget the sanitization of the soul. That is what Vesta is serving as Vesta goes through Sagittarius. Explore, network, try, take chances, go beyond what you are used to, try new things, express your freedom, claim your range of freedom. But do not forget to remain centered in yourself. Do not betray yourself. Do not neglect yourself, and do not stay too far away from reverence in yourself through the 12th house as you learn to turn isolation into the embrace of solitude. Number 9, Hermit card, South Node, Virgo, working against the detriment of Venus. Do we understand that? Do we understand that? Because once we rob ourselves of that, there goes the peace. There goes the security. There goes the status of wholeness with the self. We must never forget what it took. We must never betray our own wisdom. So there has to be a compromise between the stability through Scorpio and security through Cancer that we learn to incorporate into our reality. And it has to work in harmony and balance with the freedom that we now are about to explore through new relationships and new opportunities and experiences. Know that they are soul contracts. You cannot use a person as your source of inner child healing, dumping of your emotional perils. You cannot use another person to do your portion of healing. You cannot use a person to subject yourself yet again to addictive behaviors, self-sabotage, destructive behaviors, oppression to the self through lust, through Venus impulses, through indulgences, and also through acts of escapism through the senses. That is to abuse the soul contract. That is to abuse opportunity and to abuse your freedom. And it's the number 9 hermit card, Virgo, at the South Node that is reinforcing that lesson. Do we understand that? So help you God. So help you God. What does this have to do with Aries full moon? All of this sets the stage for a balanced entry into the point of initiation of the true fulfilled life in balance. The sun is in Libra. The full moon is in opposition in Aries. Therefore, the solution to the emotional intensity in Aries is through the protocol or tactic of Libra. And what this tells us is that diplomacy, tact, ethical wisdom and insight, fair negotiation, a sense of justice to the self and others, harmonization of one's affairs and status within the self and around others, sensitivity to others, painless and minimize damage in the delivery of assertive efforts to set oneself free from the limitations in one's life that constricts or limits the initiatives that creates the reality to reflect the authentic status of oneself. This is the case. So, through the means of Libra, we are to relieve ourselves of the crisis in Aries through that means and through that expression. Diplomacy. Now, what does the diplomacy accomplish? You need the security of Cancer Jupiter status in your life. Without Libra, you will blow that connection. You will spoil that connection. You will oppress that achievement. You will oppress that expression in your life. That could be through people or through circumstance if you do not lean into Libra. As it relates to the freedom expression, Juno, Sagittarius, and Vesta, if we do not observe balance in how we set ourselves free and how we claim new experiences and relationships, if we do not observe the balance, which is the consideration of what it took to restore the sense of security, the bond with the inner child, the restoration of the connection with the inner child, harmonization with the inner child, making peace again with the inner child, I must remember, in the name of Juno, who hosts the themes of my relationships in transit, that I can have no relationship outside of the reflection of my relationship between me and my inner child. Any relationship that I initiate, it's going to reflect the status that I have with my inner child. So if I should betray my inner child, which means to actively resist the guidance of Vesta in Sagittarius, which means be true to yourself, stay true to yourself, I will reap the consequences of that outcome through those relationships as a reflection of what I have done to the relationship with my inner child. So do not betray your inner child with your freedom. The South Node Libra example was that we do things to hurt ourselves, to put ourselves in position to have a reason to cry, to put ourselves in position to get traumatized, to put ourselves in position to be wronged or oppressed, to be injured, to get broken. And we want to run and blame somebody else. We want to play the victim. But if you play back the tape, your inner child was warning you. Your inner child was talking to you. Your inner child was begging you not to violate the matriarchal law that speaks loudly and lowly in your spirit. But you choose to ignore it. And it surrounds you with trauma, pain, regret, shame, humiliation, a bogged down conscience, confusion, doubt, self-hatred, alienation of the self, escapism. All of these symptoms that we learn are often self-inflicted, a consequence of self-negligence and self-betrayal. Cancer Mars transit in retrograde direct motion, 9 months, it taught us that core lesson. And so did the journey through the wilderness through Scorpio. It taught us what happens when we betray ourselves and pack down the authentic expressions of ourself, the needs of ourself, the destiny of ourself, in order not to be rejected, abandoned, left outside, or isolated. So instead, we transfer that abuse to the inner child so that we ourselves can avoid the abuse that we transferred to the inner child. And all we get as a consequence is someone to come in our life and treat us the same way that we treated our inner child. It's not a mystery why we keep getting what we get. So we must not forget. Our mission is for heaven. It is to be respected and reverenced that our mission is for heaven. That Aries placement is your calling to leadership. It's your calling to leadership. It is what you are expected to fearlessly initiate over and over again in this life. It is where you have a delivery to make, and it is always urgent. But it has to be dressed with Libra. Make it painless. Make it fair. Make it just. Make it civilized. Make sure that it honors and remains consistent with the 42 laws of Ma'at, always. Assertive, but not aggressive. This full moon, the emotional pressure is very productive. You are going to feel boldness. You're going to feel courage. You're going to feel fearlessness about confirming who you are. And with that energy, you can fight for in the right way. Your first house, your rising, your ascendant, to become a reality in your life with intention and purpose behind it that is consistent with what you know to be a divine intention and purpose to fulfill. Your talent, your gift of the fifth house, the pride that you want to take at your Leo placement, the refinement that it took through Virgo, the clearing of the conscience through Pisces, closing the door to escapism and standing out bold and courageous instead of running. This is a calling for you to show up and to be counted among those who are sent out into the world to push light, to push purpose, and to show up in the earth with what we, the people, need collectively. Your services. Your services are needed. And you have to show up with it. Mercury in Scorpio this is going to help us to get down to the bottom of. And what are we getting down to the bottom of? There's a lot of deception taking place in society. False narratives, flat out lies, headlines that are warring, principalities that are warring, planning and scheming to possess your mind, to control your mind. Uranus in Gemini is nothing to overlook. Uranus is a redeemer, Obashango. Uranus makes sure that your story and your life journey remains consistent with the heavenly intent that you came to earth with, that you should never go astray from your purpose, from your calling, from your life path, and from facilitating your own expression of the heart-soul urge. It is Uranus that makes executive decisions in your life that pulls you out of contradiction with your heart and your soul's mission. With Uranus in Gemini, this action of Uranus or Shango is taken over your mind, your perception, your opinions, your views, how you imply and how you infer, how you assimilate information, how you test information, what you deem to be true or false, real or an illusion. Uranus is in charge of this, and because of that, Uranus does have the intention of saving us from deception, misguidance, or any positioning of the mind that poses limitations or restrictions within the inner ring of Saturn, which is conformity, false narratives, propaganda, and deceptive smoke. We do have the ability to block this, and it can be blocked with fear. It could be blocked with hatred, shame, guilt. It can be blocked with codependency, which is consistent with fear. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being disliked, the fear of being talked about, the fear of not being befriended, the fear of not being popular, the fear of not getting validation, the fear of losing money. or other opportunities of status, if you should tell the truth, if you should acknowledge the truth, if you should align with the truth, if you should be authentic, if you should be real, if you should be yourself. Fear can block this. And as a consequence, you can bring blindness to yourself. Ignorance is bliss. It is convenient to willfully choose ignorance. It is blissful for a time to willfully choose ignorance in order to avoid scrutiny, in order to avoid a sense of judgment over oneself, in order to avoid pushback, criticism, in order to avoid rejection, in order to avoid shame. I warn you of cowardice. I warn you of cowardice. This is your timeline. 2025. Foot to earth. Foot to earth. This is your timeline. What takes place in your country, in your demographic, in your family, it's not for you to turn the other way. It's not for you to turn a blind eye. It's not for you to pretend like you can't see and hear what is happening in the earth. It's not for you to willfully choose ignorance. It's not for you to practice the escapism of, oh, I didn't know, I don't know, I don't care to know. We all have a duty to show up. We all have a responsibility to open our minds, to free our minds, to exercise our minds, to make use of our minds and our intelligence, to have sincere and valid awareness of the events taking place in our nations and demographics. What is happening in our world? Do you feel responsible enough to know what the story is? What's the news? Spirituality is not to run away from the headlines. It's not to duck and hide. It's not to assume yourself on a moral high ground, a moral high horse, where you get to conveniently escape into the fog of Pisces, running away from your portion. You in and of yourself are responsible for knowing the truth. You are responsible for finding out what the truth is. You are responsible for doing the necessary research, finding the proofs and evidences that confirms truth. You are responsible to do that, especially if you are a parent, especially if you are a father, especially if you are a mother, especially if you ever should claim that you love your family. You are responsible to have awareness. It does not mean you have to cross the line of attachment, but at minimum, it is your duty to have awareness of what happens in your world. Not entertaining hearsay, gossip. I know a guy who told me this and a guy told me that. No, what did you make the effort to diligently research and confirm? Uranus is in Gemini. It is our duty to be intellectuals in this time. It is not an option. The intellect is a duty. It is the means by which we find our way out of the matrix, is through our intelligence. Uranus takes us out of the matrix. Uranus in Gemini is already giving you the clue that through your mindset, through the use of your intelligence, you stand out in the outer rings of Saturn and not in the inner rings of Saturn. Your ignorance, my ignorance, is dangerous. Ignorance does not absolve us of obligation. It does not place us in a place of innocence. Our ignorance does harm. We cannot hide behind expressions of what our intentions are, how good and noble our intentions are. The nobility and goodness of our intentions means absolutely nothing if we have not put forth the effort to know better, to know and understand what's happening in our world. Who is who did what and why. It's our duty. Mercury, the Lord of Gemini, is now in Scorpio, which is to get down to the bottom of mysteries, conspiracies, narratives, lies, secrets. This is the time where it is what we must do. I'm not going to spoil everybody's mood like I normally do by going into politics. I'm going to stay out of it. But you know what I'm talking about. And it's really not about politics. It's about the forces of darkness and the forces of light that some of you don't want to acknowledge, that some of you want to be clear of through ignorance. You want to absolve yourself from it through ignorance, through selection of ignorance. I'm going to leave that topic alone, even though I'm tempted to really go into it. Now, Aries is in Aries. Understand that. And this is having us to remain consistent with what we learn about taking care of our identity. And the way that we take care of our identity, it is informed by the matriarchal source, Cancer. Listening to our conscience, maintaining the security of a clear conscience, bonding with, acknowledging, and nurturing the inner child. This is how we illuminate the first house. Cancer, to advocate in such ways as Aries is expressing for the inner child at the fourth house. And the fifth house is the expression of the inner child, which requires the sun placement to be facilitated, created, sustained, and poured into We have to show up to our platform with intention and awareness, and that is the sun sign. It is already written out who you are and what you're here to do, and it's our responsibility to figure out how to get it done. Fifth house is the expression. Fourth house is how you maintain and take care of the inner child who wants to express. The more you care for that inner child, fourth house in Cancer, the more clarity of light and expression that the inner child puts forth. And Aries has us to be faithful to that in our identity, so that that clarity and creativity is always there. And with the clearing of the conscience through what we learn with Pisces Saturn transit, it optimizes the power of creativity through Jupiter. The power of creativity, it works hand in hand with Aries, as Aries is the initiator of that which we wish to create according to our purpose. The first house sees the world in a particular way, through a particular lens. And seeing the world that way through that lens, we often need relationships through the seventh house, which is the polarity and opposition, to find balance and contrast with who we are. It is also a way of clarifying who we are through feedback. Sagittarius Juno, expanding your sense of freedom and connections with new soul contracts and soulmates and relationships. Don't take anyone for granted who comes into your life. Don't underestimate anyone who comes into your life. Pay attention. And don't reduce the value of who's in your life to your own selfish sufferings, codependencies, emotional turbulence, greed, insecurities, lust. See the divine value and purpose of who is in your life and honor it as such. Honor it. Honor those who come into your life. Don't take people for granted. Honor them. Get out of yourself, get out of your own way for once. Honor them. Appreciate them. Let me also remind that through Cancer Jupiter expanding, we are our security now. We are the welfare. We are the resources. We are the solutions. We are the way. We are the protection. We are who and what we can expect. We cannot allow these monarchs and oligarchs, principalities in high places, the agenda of white nationalism, evangelicalism, Mormonism, Zionism, all of these compatible facilitations of Khazarian Zionism and the de facto status of Israel, pushing its regime and agenda over these United States, bringing in racism, division, fear-mongering, and hatred. We can't fall for it. We have to know what we're doing. Scorpio Mercury is giving us access to a deeper focus, a deeper awareness, and an interest and resilience to go deep enough to recover and restore and expose the truth, to get to the truth. Scorpio Mercury is going to allow us to notice what we have been missing and overlooking while standing in the same place. It has us to be truthful, honest, real and sincere, no matter how hard it hurts to look at it. Scorpio Mercury gives us the ability to name, classify, identify what the problem in the depth of our soul has been, that's been causing us pain, confusion, paralyzing our energy and our emotional state, matters of the heart and of the soul that just cannot be explained. With Mercury, we're finally going to be able to name what those problems are that have been plaguing us, robbing us of our rest and of our peace, filling us with spite, vengeance, and anger, confusing us and having us to drag around a darkness and shadows. Mercury allows us to finally name it. And when you can name the issue, when you can name the problem, you can strategize to solve the problem. You can get other people involved to help you with the problem. You can come up with solutions for the problem, but it can't begin until you're able to name and classify the problem. And this is what Scorpio Mercury is going to help us to do, to name it, to classify it, to finally understand what we are fighting in the dark. Much of this works well to clear away the fog that Neptune has been holding over the identity at Aries, as Mars, the Lord of Aries, is also in Scorpio, crossing the same territories of Scorpio. This clarification will finally come in to dissolve the fog that Neptune has held over the identity, as Scorpio is the resurrection of Aries. It is the resurrection of the being. In the depths of that dark material are nuances, issues, pains, regrets, attachments, matters of the past and fears of the future that keeps us absent in the present moment, that keeps us unable to transmute and transform, that keeps us unable to regenerate true empowerment. By getting down to the bottom of this, clarity will sharpen and intensify over the expression and identity of the first house. And that's when empowerment to the first house will accelerate as well. We are on the other side with this Aries eclipse, and it is something with this Aries full moon, and it is something that we can celebrate, because from here, the first house gets set free. And from here, our new community, our soulmates, are either here or on the way. And this is where we finally get to create the true reality. But no one gets to reap the benefits and rewards if you are too cowardly to fight for it. Cowards will not get the fruits of the promised land. Cowards will not enter the gates of the promised land. Any cowardice must be dealt with and addressed within yourself, and you must find the courage and the resilience, the boldness to align with truth. No matter what it is that truth is, you must align with it and not run away. Fugitives only run right back into themselves.